Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, covers Arizona, covers the Pac-12. We've had Jason on a lot, really, since about a year ago when USC, UCLA, and also the Big Ten story popped. So, Jason, really, the timeline just moves on. The calendar keeps on flipping days. Your thoughts, do you think Colorado's going to pull the trigger?
It definitely looks like that. I mean, there's a lot of smoke, and I know there's been smoke or hints in the past, but this feels real because the guys that usually aren't talking about it as a possibility have started to talk about it a little bit more. I think Rick George, the AD, when he said a few weeks ago that Colorado's going to do what's best for Colorado was kind of the hint, but it definitely feels like it's headed in that direction.
Yeah, that sounded like, oh no, we're pretty happy with our head coach and all that before they have to fire him. We had Brian Howell from the Boulder Daily Camera on last week, Jason, and he said that, Craig asked him a question, said, so they're going to wait for the TV deal before they make this decision. And even he, who has been on the other side of the fence, said, now I don't really know if that's the case. If there comes a time in the next few weeks where they just decided they're sick of waiting, that they might jump anyway. Do you get that sense from Arizona as well, that they might be in the sick of waiting and not look at, not even worry about what the deal is at this point?
Well, the biggest issue with Arizona that's been relayed to me is they'd love to wait and see what the deal is, but there's no indication the deal is coming. Like, it's really, you're kind of waiting until the last minute. You think, okay, like, if there's a deal, end of June, we'll wait. We'll wait to the end of June if there's a deal. And if not, now we're going to start kind of really, it's got to be taken very seriously. And I think everybody in the Pac-12 would love to see what the final offer looks like or a legitimate offer looks like. The problem is no one's really confident that it's coming. And so I think the Colorados and Arizonas of the world are saying, look, we'll wait. Like, we have no problem waiting to see what the offer is. And you got a few weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it may be. But that offer eventually has to come. Like, we're not just going to sit here and wait for an imaginary offer to come when we're not confident that it's coming.
So, Jason, I mean, besides that kind of remaining the case of hey, let's sort of see and let's be patient, all that, how would you classify Arizona, their interest levels, and just sort of where they sit right now? Is it all that different from maybe where it even was a month ago, 2 months ago? Has much changed there?
I don't think a lot's really changed. I mean, Arizona doesn't want to be the first from what I've heard. It's kind of, the Arizona, ASUs, Utahs, they're all looking kind of towards Colorado. And I'm not saying they're all going to go, but I think at this point it's pretty clear that Colorado, it would be the first team to leave if someone leaves. And I think once that happens, Arizona would be second and right behind Colorado. But, it's really a matter of, okay, who's going to be the first? And if Colorado's the first, that makes it a lot easier for Arizona. And Arizona's been patient throughout the whole process. I mean, they basically have said, look, we'll wait. We know that we are able to join the Big 12. There's no real, Yormark hasn't said, hey, you have to join by this date. Maybe that comes eventually. I don't know. But Arizona's been patient and they're waiting. And when it becomes super obvious that the Pac-12 just isn't going to have the deal that maybe they've relayed to conference members, I think that Colorado probably goes and Arizona would follow pretty closely in that case.
Jason, I saw you respond. I don't know whose tweet it was, but somebody that mentioned Arizona State holding up anything that Arizona would do. Can you try to explain the politics involved there?
Yeah, so, there's a board of regents in Arizona, and I think that people are confusing it kind of with the board of regents and the board that, put UCLA kind of and try to get money from them and all that. It's different. It's not the same in the sense where they just don't have that legislative power, right? And so, they could kind of maybe verbally, say, hey, we wish that you would stay together, but they're not going to do anything to stop them. And I think the difference also here is that, UCLA had an offer to the Big Ten. Cal didn't, right? And Arizona and ASU could go to the Big 12. But if ASU voluntarily says, no, we don't want to, how could you punish Arizona for that? Like, you can't say, well, then Arizona can't go either, and vice versa. So their decisions are, I think, more independent of each other than people realize. And I think if Arizona wanted to go to the Big 12, there's really, from what I've been told, nothing that the Board of Regents could do. And if ASU wanted to go to the Big 12 and Arizona State, it'd be the same thing.
Jason, I think people with that, I mean, they look back to when the Big 12 was formed and how Texas and Texas A&M had to go together and how Baylor and Tech got into the league. But if you just look at Texas and Texas A&M since that point, there's been nobody standing in their way in this state. And Cal was, just kicking up some dust. So I think that maybe even the national attitude towards, keeping all these teams together just is gone.
Yeah, and I mean, there's at the end of the day, it's these schools have to do what's best for themselves, and we saw it. USC and UCLA, they left, and there's a big, at least with UCLA's case, USC is a private school, but UCLA, I mean, there's a big UC system. Like there's multiple schools that work with each other and all that, and UCLA basically said screw it and left, and there's nothing that these boards can do. I mean, they're not in control of funding and all that. They can verbally reprimand you. They could hold hearings and all that. But at the end of the day, there's nothing they can actually do to stop these schools from making those decisions.
Jason, are just those within the conference, I know they need to wait and they have to figure something out, whatever might happen. Is it just annoying at this point? Is it just, come on, man. I mean, even those who are the most ardent that everything sticks together.
Yeah. It's dragging out by now. Like, even the people that are like, look, the conference is going to stick together and all that. Well, it's like, when? And then yesterday there were rumors like, oh, maybe there's something with the Apple and all that, even though there was never going to be. And it's like, oh, nothing's there. And now you see, it's just that every day, I find the people that say the conference is going to break up, and I know people get annoyed by that, but I think it's just as annoying in the opposite view also. Like, there's no indication that a magical deal is going to come. There's just none. And if it does happen, props to George Klikovsky, because he did it very secretly. But there's just no indication that there's a major network that's going to come and save the Pac-12 for more money than everyone thinks. And it's kind of just, it's dragging and dragging, and I love it. It's good for business and all that, but it's kind of at the point where it's like, let's either sign a deal or kind of break up the conference.
Jason, if Colorado and Arizona, like two teams, leave, do you think that there will be a Pac-12 long term, or do you think that even if they decided to sit together for 5 years, that's just the first two of a rainstorm coming later on?
Yeah, I think all that's going to happen is, let's say, even if the Pac-12 loses Arizona and Colorado, they'll replace it with, say, San Diego State and SMU. And, if Oregon and Washington left, they would just replace those. And they wouldn't come close to the value, but I don't think the Pac-12 is just going to disappear. I just think it would become a lesser conference. And, and the reality is, even if they sign a deal, we're doing this whole thing again in 4 or 5 years, and that's when the real movement would probably happen. And, it's just a matter of what that movement's going to look like. But I think the Pac-12 will exist. I just think it might look a little bit more like the Mountain West than it is the Pac-12 that we know it.
Do you think Colorado makes a move in the next, let's say, week or less?
No, I think it'll be longer than that. I think this thing probably... To me, the date to watch out for is around June 30th, because that's when San Diego State has to give notice. If they don't give notice or whatever it may be, they have to basically wait until 2025, which is fine. But now you've kicked out realignment an extra year, the fiscal year, all that. I think the end of the month, the next 2-3 weeks is really, if there's not a move by the end of June, I'd be kind of surprised. But I mean, I feel like I've been saying that for a while.
Yeah, I think maybe started that back in July a year ago. Jason, with the basketball possibilities, and there was a report today that maybe not everybody in the Big 12 is on board with UConn or even whatever basketball. Gonzaga's been brought up. But it's all about the football dollars and Benjamins. But if in fact the Big 12 was to also add Gonzaga and UConn, would that even be on the radar of Arizona?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because from a basketball standpoint, it's awesome. But at the end of the day, the financial impact of adding those schools basketball wise isn't going to be like Arizona isn't going to say, oh crap, we have to go now. Like it kind of surprises me actually that there would be basketball only additions, not from Yormark's perspective, but from the other school's perspective. Is how can Yormark sell that there's going to be enough money in the conference to add these schools basketball-wise without the other ones losing money? And now are you adding Arizona and Colorado to that mix? So it kind of surprises me a little bit in that regard. I wouldn't be surprised if Yormark waits and see, if Colorado and Arizona don't come and they stay in whatever the Pac-12 is, then do you go to Gonzaga and UConn? It would just kind of surprise me if those were the first steps, because I don't think that has a monumental impact on Arizona and Colorado and them saying all of a sudden we have to go now because Gonzaga and UConn are in the conference.
Jason, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. As always, 247 Sports, Wildcat Authority covers Arizona. Just checking in with Jason. It's been a little bit of time. We appreciate his time.
Yeah.